to the Kuali webinar, How to Streamline Your Research Protocols Management. I'm Jen Flock, the Research Compliance Product Owner at Kuali, and I'm excited to present to you today. Before we start our demonstration, I want to have a big shout out to all of our customers who helped with the design of this new system. Over the last year or so, they've participated in user group meetings, monthly, sometimes weekly. They contributed in terms of feedback, helping us with prioritizing. They gave input into the usability and participated in one-on-one design sessions and organized local testing and provided so much feedback and input over the last year. We really couldn't have done it without you. Today in our demonstration, I'm going to focus on a few key points of the system. The webinar is only an hour, so I can't demonstrate all of the robust features that we have available. I will focus on how the system allows you to manage both human and animal protocols within the same portal. So instead of having to go to an IRB module to work on human protocols and then a IACUC module to do your animal research protocols, the investigator and the admins can go to one portal and work on whatever protocols they need to. The next point is that we have protocol templates that allow institutions to create their protocol forms in a way that guides the researcher through the application and does that in a way so that the investigator doesn't have to figure out, oh, based on this type of research, do I need to include these forms or not? And they can go through the process, be guided through to provide the required information and not have to add any additional information that isn't needed. So this makes the protocol more likely to be ready for review on the first submission and also saves a lot of time for the investigator. The next item that I'm going to demonstrate is the review commenting feature. This is greatly improved to reduce the burden on researchers, reviewers, and compliance administrators. So it's very clear when review comments are made and given back to the researcher what section of the protocol they pertain to, and it creates a number of efficiencies in the review process. The high-level scenarios that I'm going to demonstrate are the investigator creating, preparing, and submitting the protocol for review, and the compliance administrator processing protocols for review and preparing for the next meeting. So I'll be showing you both the researcher side and the compliance administrator side. So with that, I'm going to start the demonstration. So here I've logged into the system as a user who has a number of different roles. So you can see on the left-hand menu, I have the ability to manage protocols, which an investigator would have, and also potentially other individuals on a protocol, and unit administrators. A number of different people can have access to this screen. Protocols assigned to me is given to a reviewer, a committee member, so they can see what their review assignments are. And committee members can also see the meetings and agendas to be able to view the upcoming meetings and also minutes that have been generated from previous meetings. The other items like committees, protocol templates, IRB, and IACUC configuration are available to me because I have logged in as someone who is an IRB and IACUC admin. Other users would not see this. Also, if I were only an IRB admin, I would not see the items that are specific to IACUC. So it has very robust access controls within the system. With that, I'm going to hide this left-hand menu and show you some of the features that we have available on the Manage Protocol screens. Within this screen, you can see that I have a number of different items that I can view at a time. I can also change these columns so that I can view which protocols are animal, which protocols are human, for example. I could say, oh, I want to see what my expiration dates are in upcoming protocols. Or I could hide these and say, oh, I don't really need that information at this point in time. So as I'm showing and hiding these columns, I'm doing that just for myself. So as an individual user, I can go in and say, this is the work I want to be doing today, and configure the information I see based on that. Another user may want to look at things very differently. Another feature that helps in focusing on the work that you're doing each day are filters. Within the filter mechanism, currently I don't have any filter on my protocols, but I have some other filters that I have already created. So one is to see what protocols I have in progress, so I can easily go to them and start working on those. Another example is I have a filter that shows just Dr. Eagle's protocols. So for example, if I'm a study coordinator and I'm working with multiple PIs, I can go in and say, oh, today I just want to look at the protocols supporting the PI who's Emory Eagle. And I have this filter that I've created, so I can easily do that. And another user, of course, can be creating similar filters for the type of work and the PIs that they need to work with. So each of these filters have particular rules that you can add and build on and save. And I can go back to these whenever I want. And then if I clear this out and go back to no filters, a few things to also show you here. In submission type, you can see there's different types of submissions. So just to give you an idea of the protocol lifecycle that we're currently supporting within the system, you can see we have new protocols. So these are protocols that have not yet been approved, but are somewhere in the process, either in progress or submitted for review, resubmitted. Initial protocol is a protocol that has been reviewed and approved, but it has not yet been amended or renewed. Renewed means that the protocol has gone through at least one renewal in its life cycle after being approved. And then also down here you can see I have an amended protocol and also an amendment in progress. So that gives you an idea of the breadth of protocol types that we're supporting. And then here in the status feature, you can also see the different statuses that are involved for each of these protocols. So at this point, what I'm going to do is go in and create a new protocol. One thing you'll notice, again, because this is one portal and it covers the animal and human protocols, I can go in when I create a new protocol and determine which type of protocol I want to create. In this instance, I'm going to go ahead and create an IRB protocol. I'm creating my human protocol. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to first select my principal investigator. The principal investigator that I'm searching for here is coming from a human resources feed. So you are able to put data into our user authentication system so that you can include both people that are coming in from your human resources system, and then you can also include external users. So if you have investigators who are outside of the organization, or perhaps are student investigators that are not fed in via your human resources system, all of those can be available for loading into the system and being available both as principal investigators, other study personnel, and giving them access to the system. The next thing I'm going to do is select the lead unit. One of the things about the lead unit is this is used in a couple of different ways within the system. One way is in that it helps drive some of the permissions. I mentioned that earlier, that there are access controls that we provide based on department or school. So for example, if I want to give an individual read-only view to a set of protocols within their unit, I can do that, and what the system will do is look and see the lead unit of a particular protocol, and based on that, it'll determine whether a given user has access. So the next thing I'm going to do here, and then also I'll show in a little bit that there are permissions that you can provide at the protocol level. So on a case-by-case basis, you can provide permissions to view or edit as well. So I'm typing in my title here, in which we've got a researcher using Kuali protocols, and we're going to look at how that impacts their quality of life. The one thing to notice here, actually, these first three items are required. This next one, you can see that it is optional based on this help text that's provided. So it says I can optionally include a lay statement. I am going to do that. And then after I add these few pieces of information, I will be able to save my protocol. And then with this, I can go in and move to the next step. And I have now saved my protocol. I could leave and come back to that protocol, but I'm going to keep going. What I have now in front of me is what we call the general questionnaire. The general questionnaire is used to determine what additional forms you will need in your protocol. So at this level, this is where you'll typically configure your template based on different types of research, level of risk, different high-level decision-making criteria that would then trigger additional questionnaires and forms. In this case, you'll see that my protocol is very basic, just for ease of the demonstration and not having to type in a whole bunch of things while you're watching. I kept it pretty bare bones, but you'll see how this process works. So in this case, if I say I'm going to choose option A here, based on that, not only will I potentially trigger additional forms when I get to the next step, I also have a child question that I need to answer. Another thing to notice here, so I have different options. So here I have radio buttons, so I can only select one answer. Here I have check boxes, so I can select more than one answer. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. On the next question, it says it's about vulnerable populations. And not only do I have the label of the question, but I also have some help text underneath. So that's another aspect of our form builder, is it does have the ability to add descriptive text along with your fields or your questions to help guide the investigator to provide the appropriate information. So in this case, I'm going to say yes to vulnerable populations, and then down here I'm going to say no more than minimal risk. So with that, I've completed my general questionnaire, and I'm going to click next. And this is where, based on the questions and my answers in the general questionnaire, I get the various forms that I need to fill out to submit my protocol. So in addition to the general information and the general questionnaire, which I've already completed, I have the people and attachment sections. And then I have study overview, and then you can see here I have this form called vulnerable populations. And the reason I have this is because I had indicated that vulnerable populations are going to be used in this study. So what I can do here is I can then go in and add another person. I'm going to do that quickly. So if I'm searching from the various users. I'm going to add Emery Eagle. I'm going to just put him at the university level. I'm going to say he is a co-investigator. And here I have the permissions. So this is where I can indicate whether the co-investigator in this case can have full access or read only. So not only do we have the role-based and unit-based type of access controls, we also have permissions at the protocol level. The other thing that you may see popping down, up and down on the bottom of our screen is the system is saving as I go. There's an automatic save that's occurring, so that if I suddenly get kicked out of the system or get distracted, I won't lose my work. And then I can save here when I've completed this screen. And you can see I've added another person. And then you can also see for the people and the attachments, we have these gears where I could show different columns if I wanted to see them as well. And again, when I show the different columns or hide them, that's not removing those data from the protocol, it's just changing the display. So I can focus on the information that I care about at this time. So next I can go and I can add an attachment. One thing that you can do with regard to attachments is you can either choose from your file system or you can drag and drop. In this case, I'm going to drag and drop and just pull in a quick summary here. And I'm going to say that this is a flyer for the study. Just say flyer. For recruitment, and my attachment type is a recruitment advertisement. These attachment types are configurable, so depending upon what attachments that you want to collect for your IRB or IACUC protocols, you can configure those in the protocol templates, and you can also determine which should be optional and which should be required. I'm now going to save this. So I've added my attachment. So with that, I'm going to now go down to the other sections I haven't done yet. I could go and if I change questions in the general questionnaire, it may change the forms that I need to fill out, but in this case, I'm just quickly going to go in and start adding my information, specific aim. So here's another example of a type of question I have. This is a text box. Does Kuali Protocols help investigators sleep better at night? And I plan to start this next month. So I have a date picker as an option and a number here. I will add 15 for my enrollment. So here's my vulnerable population section. So this I need to answer because of my general questionnaire answer to that I'm including vulnerable populations. I am going to say I need another vulnerable group. In this case, it's overworked researchers. And the measures to protect members of this study group, I will say feed them, and I'll just say feed them. Okay, and with that, I can submit my protocol. And now that I've submitted my protocol, you can see, again, because I'm the admin, I'm also seeing the admin view that the protocol has been submitted. So I have these comment features. At this point, I'm actually going to go back and show you how I might access this as the admin, assuming I'm not already here, which I most likely would not be. So what I would potentially do is go into my dashboard. And in my dashboard, as an admin, I can see the protocols that need attention, and I can also see protocols that may be with others in this review process. So here I have IRB protocols that some are newly submitted, some have been returned by a reviewer. Actually, I don't have any in that category right now. I have one that's been returned by the reviewer, meaning it's been resubmitted after being sent back. I can also see how many protocols are in similar states for my IACUC side. So if I'm in a compliance office that does both IRB and IACUC, I can see these together in one dashboard. That said, if I am just an IRB person, I would not see these. If I am in an office where we do both, but I don't care about some of these pieces of information, I can hide them from my dashboard. And again, this dashboard, the changes I'm making here are for me personally. They're not for others in my office. So my colleague may have a different function in the office and may want to see different things. So potentially this could be one way I would go and see that a new protocol has been submitted. We also have emails that are triggered, and that could be another way that I could find out that a protocol had been submitted. So I'm going to go in and I see I have my newly submitted protocol. I have some others in my list as well. But I'm going to open the new protocol that has been submitted and review this. So I had mentioned early on this webinar that we have this commenting feature. You'll notice that we have the ability to add general comments for the overall protocol, but we also have a comment box where you can add comments at individual field level. So instead of having to put in a list of comments and say, oh, see section, 1B, and these are the comments related to that, I can click on that section and put in a comment and say, please add admins too. And when I add this, I can keep the comment internal, or I can make it visible to the researcher so that when I send this protocol back, the researcher would be able to see that comment. So I'm going to save that. And you can easily see that a comment's been made. I'm also going to go down here, say, oh, this looks good. Let me look at the summary. And you can see we also have within our attachment feature for images and for PDF documents, you can view those attachments within the screen. So I have the option to download, but for images and PDF documents, I can view them within the Kuali's protocol module, just so I can do that quickly without having to download and wait for that to occur. So I can see here how the general questionnaire was answered, and then maybe I say down here, again, please include admins. And I'll make that visible. And then I might say here, give them coffee too. So I've got multiple comments here, and what I could do now is hand this off to another reviewer to review it and have it go through that process. But what I'm going to do for the purposes of this demo is I'm going to return this protocol to the investigator and have them address these comments before I assign it to review. So I'm going to return it to the investigator. And then again, I'm going to go in, pretend that I'm the investigator, and I may go and see, oh, on my dashboard or on my managed protocols list, I'm going to look at all my protocols, and oh, I see I have a protocol that's been returned. I better look at that. So then I can open that protocol and I can see these comments. So as an investigator, I can go in and then I can respond to each of these comments by changing the information that I've provided previously. So I'm going to say end admins, apply that change, go through the protocol, and add that here. And then if I just wanted to, if I wanted to remove overworked, I could do that as well. Apply that change, and then feed them and give coffee. And now I have responded to each of those comments. And what I can do is see the changes that I've made. So if I click show changes, latest changes up here, I get a track changes view of the edits that I've made that go along with these comments. So you can see I've added admins there. further down, I removed some things and added some things. So with that, I'm going to resubmit. And then I'm going to circle back as an admin to my dashboard. And this is where I would have the protocol appearing in the resubmitted list. And you can see it has its new title. And again, also as the admin, I can go and see the changes that have been made. And I can also see that they haven't changed other items. They had the opportunity to do that in case, based on a change they made to the title, they realized they needed to add something else. But I can see that they've only addressed the things that I've asked them to, so that's great. And at this point, I may go ahead and assign this for review. So this is where I could say, oh, this should go for full board review. I can assign it to a committee. In this case, I have multiple committees. So I'm going to send it to my human committee. And for the May 18th date, I can also assign a admin reviewer. So what I could do here is if you are in an office where you have multiple administrators that may have particular responsibility for a certain portfolio of protocols, that can be tracked here. So you can not only have the committee member reviews and the protocol reviewers, but also an administrator who is really the primary admin who will make sure that protocol goes through their process. You could add them here as well. I'll add myself. I can set a review deadline, and this is used in the dashboard filters where you can see where reviews may be overdue. And this can also go out to the reviewers so they can see when they need to submit their reviews. So in this case, I'll say they have to the 24th. And then I can add a primary reviewer and a secondary reviewer and assign the protocol. So now this protocol has been assigned, and I will now change gears one more time, and I will show you a little bit of work with respect to a IACUC protocol. So I focus mostly on the IRB side. Just to recap, what I've done so far is I've created a protocol, submitted it, and then as the administrator, I made comments, sent it back to the investigator, who then made updates, and then I determined it was ready for review. So I assigned it for review. So what I can do now is say I'm going to go in and I'm going to look at my protocols that have been submitted for animal ethics review. So in this case, I have research on frogs using Kuali, because that makes a lot of sense. And then here I can see, oh, in my activity log, this has gone back and forth a few times. So the activity log is a place where you can see if a protocol has gone through several versions and what actions have been taken. So based on that, I can say, oh, let's see if they've responded to the comments. And in this case, they did. It looks like we had asked them to use a species in the title. So that's all good. No other comments. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this for review. So even though I'm now in an animal protocol, you can see that the process is very similar. There are some differences. For example, for an animal protocol, I can assign it for designated member review. And when I do that, I have a determination due date. So in addition to the review deadline, I can also set the date by which the committee members would need to indicate that this protocol would perhaps need full board review. So I have the ability to include that, and that can go to the researchers, and I say, I'm just going to give them a day. And in this case, I will assign it to my committee. And you'll notice that until I have assigned the protocol to a committee, you don't see the reviewers because the reviewers are pulled in based on the committee selected. I'm going to assign this to a meeting. So even though it's designated member review, I want it to be included on that meeting as for the information of the committee members to keep them in the loop as to what's going on. And I'm going to set a review deadline. And again, this deadline is for the reviews themselves, as opposed to the determination date by which the other reviewers would have to say this needs to go for full board. I'm going to assign this to Althea Bird because I assign a lot of protocols to her. And at this point, again, we have different notifications that can be sent, and those are recorded in the history as well. So now that I've assigned this protocol for review, you can see it's been assigned as designated member review, assigned the committee, which meeting, and I also in my history see the notifications that were sent. So the notifications appear based on privileges. So again, I am an administrator, so I can see the full history on this protocol. If I were this reviewer, I would be able to see this notification in the protocol history as well. If I were an investigator on this protocol, I would not see this notification. So I would not be able to see who was assigned as the primary reviewer. So what appears in the activity log is also permissions based. So here I'm going to close that. And then at this point, what I'm going to do is move over to the meeting management. So I'm going to go back into my main menu and go into meetings and agendas. And again, this I have available to me, and I can edit these meetings because I am an administrator. So now I'm going to go in and prepare a meeting. So let me do this May 5th meeting here. So you can see I've already started a few things on this meeting. Some of the information provided here is pulled in from the system. So you can see the committee members. It indicates their title on the committee and whether or not they can vote. So if you have some committee members who participate but do not have a voting status, you can easily track that in your meetings. I can scroll down and see that I've already added some agenda items, and I have protocols in two categories. One category is the for information only. So these are the protocols that may be designated member review or just going through some other exempt type of review that, again, we want to keep the committee members in the loop, but they won't actually be reviewed at that meeting. And then there's also protocols that are scheduled to be reviewed at this meeting. So they are automatically added based on the review assignment that I made within the protocol. The other items I have here are general business items that I've added. And I created these sections myself, and I can change these. So I could say general business and announcements. So if I want to change what this agenda item's called, I can do that here. You can see I've already created an agenda item of reviewing the previous meeting minutes, and I have a PDF there of the previous minutes, and these were generated using the print minutes functionality that's available in the system. So I'm going to close that. And then let's say I want to add another item, and I want to say discussion of Kuali Protocols implementation. I definitely have a theme going on here. And in this, I'm going to include a PDF about Kuali Protocols and save that. So now this item has an attachment as well. And I can move things around if I want. At this point, I'm just going to look quickly, make sure I uploaded the correct attachment. And it appears that I did. So I'm going to close that. And at this point, I'm just creating the various agenda items and adding protocols. But you can see based on the status of this meeting, it says planned. It has not been held yet. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to publish it and share it with the committee members. So I can work on the agenda as an administrator and share it with the committee members when I'm ready. I'm going to do that now. The other thing is, after I publish the committee, and the committee members now can go into their meeting menu and see the protocols on the agenda items. I can also make updates to the agenda, and the committee members will see that as well. What I can do at this point is pretend as though today is May 5th and I'm ready to have the meeting. And at that point, I could begin my meeting. And when I do that, I have additional options. I can go ahead and add the attendance for each person who is present or absent. So that is one feature. And then I can also go in and I can create notes. So this is how I can prepare my minutes. I can say, we discussed this and it was great. And I can add notes. I can also, for my full board protocol, I can create a motion such as approve and indicate who has voted yes based on the attendance and who is able to vote on this protocol, and save that. And you can see after I've done that, it indicates that the vote is complete. And at this point, that was a very quick meeting, so I'm going to end the meeting. And what I can do is continue to edit the notes until I'm ready to share these with the committee members and submit the minutes. And then I can also print a summary of the minutes as well. And that's the very high-level view of the meeting process. So with that, I am going to wrap it up. I think we have about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we have time for questions. But just to recap real quick, I did go through and show a number of features, and I showed how an investigator creates and prepares and submits a protocol. In this case, I only showed new protocols. I did not go through the amendment and renewal processes, but we support those as well. And then I also processed a protocol for review and prepared for the next meeting. I did not show the reviewer, all the reviewer features or committee member features. They're similar to what the admin does, but a little bit scaled down. But that is what I covered today. So I think with that, Susan has another poll, I believe, and then we'll field some questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Jen. I thought doing a poll would be a great opportunity for everyone who's waiting for other people to put in questions to have an activity, but it's also going to be helpful for us when we plan protocols further into the future. So the first poll that we wanted to start with was, how many committees do you have? So as a reminder, if you're not answering the poll right now, feel free to enter any questions into the questionnaire box, and we'll be answering those in a few minutes. Great, so it seems like the majority of people have between 2 and 5 committees. So then I'll now move into the question and answer session. Okay, so we have one question here about how easy is the form builder to use, and is it possible for my own institution and the employees at my school to maintain their own forms?
So the answer is yes. The template is rather easy to use. I'm going to exit out of this briefly. I don't have enough time to demo it, but you can see here I'm in the protocols templates, and I can go in and select a template that's already in progress. And then I have a drag and drop menu on the right where I can add different items. So I've got a variety of gadgets I can choose from. And I drag these over, and then I can add values that I want the user to choose from, and I can make things dependent on answers to other questions. So it's actually quite easy. As part of the process of implementing our hosted customers, we'll work with you to set up your initial templates, but then it's something that is easy enough for you to maintain on your own.
Great, thanks. I'm going to add my own little comment here that I think that the comments feature is super amazing and a wonderful communication tool. But we also have a question specifically about comments here. When the comments are added, is the commenter's identity visible to the PI, or is that obscured somehow?
No. So when the researcher gets the comments back, they cannot see who made that comment. The admin can see that, other reviewers can see that, but the researcher cannot see the identity of either the administrators or the reviewers who made the comment.
All right, and then I was wondering, is it possible to make attachments optional depending on a response to a particular question?
Yes, there is a way to do that using the form builder. So what you can do is set up a question, and based on the answer to that question, you could trigger a particular attachment.
Wonderful. Seems like I can really customize a lot here. Okay. Also, we were wondering, is it possible to do something where if a agenda is editable, is there a way to also make that a template so that you don't have to constantly rebuild the agenda each and every time?
Not yet, but that is a planned feature. And one feature we do have is if a particular meeting gets canceled, you can pull agenda items over to the next meeting. But one thing we have been discussing based on feedback from our users, which we take in and we work to make improvements in the system continuously, is to allow a school to create a template where each time they start the meeting, they would have specific sections such as new business, old business, depending upon how they arrange their agenda.
And for the next question, I think you might have alluded to this a little bit, but to be clear, does the meeting also allow for a virtual meeting type of activity?
Potentially it could. The way that could work is when you are in the meeting, different users can be looking at the meeting agenda together. Also, there's the ability to see the review comments that are being made in real time. It wasn't specifically built for that. It is built so that nobody has to use paper, but we don't have chat features or some of those other items, but we might do that in the future.
Great, and another question relates to how this would connect to the rest of the Kuali Research system. So for example, is it possible to see from the award side a connection to protocols?
There will be. So this is our very first release of the protocol system, and this first release can actually be implemented standalone. So you could pull information from the your human resources and your units, your unit hierarchy into the system, but we don't yet have the integration points to the other Kuali Research modules. Those are planned for later this year, and at that time you'll be able to link the protocol with specific funding sources if you desire. And again, you can implement protocols standalone, but if you also have some of the research admin modules or even conflict of interest, we will have integration points where you can go into a protocol and you could see what awards may be associated with that protocol. And then also in the awards module, you'll be able to associate protocols from the new module into that award. So hopefully that's something we'll be demoing for you in a few months.
Great, thanks, Jen. Just wanted to make sure everyone was getting their questions in if they had any questions for Jen. And we do have another question that related to the awards one, but I'm just going to give you a chance to answer it, even though that it's very similar. What you just explained about how the awards would be in the future release a connected nature, that's also going to pertain for the proposal documents as well. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I just specifically used awards, but yes, it will.
Okay, and so it looks like we're having a couple more new questions coming in. One here is asking about how versions are tracked, and is it possible to see the whole history?
Yes, so the way that the versions work in the protocol, and I showed a little bit of that, but the versions feature within a protocol, let's see what I have in terms of, find something that's been approved. I can go in and this doesn't have too many different versions, but you can see that there have been a few returns back to the PI. There's now an amendment in progress. So I have at this point for this protocol actually two what we call active versions. So there's the active approved version. So that would be the study protocol that's currently being used, but there's also an amendment in progress. So I can go to that version through this version drop-down menu. I can also see in the activity log the different versions when they were created, what their submission type is, and under each version when they were submitted, if they were returned, when they were assigned, reviewed. So there is a lot of detail I can find on each version. And then from the activity log, I can go in and you can see here there's a link to a particular version. So I can also use that as another way to navigate the different versions within a protocol. And then along the same lines with the versions, I showed earlier, there's the show the latest changes. And that's available so you can compare two versions that are sequential to each other to see what the differences are.
That version control is going to be so helpful. Let's see, another question here. So this relates to the statuses, and are they going to be changing throughout the process? So will we see updates to the status as it goes through at a higher level? Can you give us a little example of what that looks like?
Yeah, so the main statuses of the protocol, one thing I can do here is within our filter, one thing you can do is actually filter on status, and it's also another way you can look at the various statuses. So because there's the back and forth of a protocol, they can be in various statuses based on whether they're in progress, not yet submitted, submitted. If they've been submitted previously, there's a different status, so you can see that it's been resubmitted versus being the very first submission. And then there's also these other statuses based on various actions. Some things that can occur that I didn't get into on this demo is based on a particular review. Something could go into a revisions required status, which means it's been reviewed, but there's some changes that need to be made before it can be approved. Also, we have different statuses. So for an exempt protocol, you may want to track that it's an approved status, but you would potentially want to track it differently than other types of active protocols that have been approved, so that has a separate status. So those are just some of the examples. The other thing I can mention, and I think I mentioned it briefly, but the submission type also helps you understand where a protocol is in its life cycle. So if it's new, it has and hasn't been approved yet, it has the submission type of new versus renewed, meaning there are previous versions of that protocol, and it's gone through renewals in its life cycle. So you can also see some of that information here. I hope that answered the question.
Thanks, Jen, and we'll have time for just one more question here. Could you talk to us a little bit more about how the expiration notices work?
Yeah, so in the system, we do have expiration notices. So without getting into too much detail, because we only have a couple seconds left, but we have various email notifications that can be sent out, and some of them we have here. We have one that's an expiration reminder. We also have a continuing renew reminder. So these can be set up based on a schedule. So a certain number of days approaching an expiration date can trigger an email to the investigator. So I think that is all we have time for.
Right. Thank you so much, Jen. It's been so helpful for you to walk us through this, and it's super exciting, and just I'm amazed with how beautiful it is. As you can tell, I'm the research product owner for another part of Kuali Research, and I can't wait to get our hands on the type of research technology that you're incorporating here. I did want to mention to everyone that's on the call that you can follow us for new upcoming events, and that this call has been recorded. You can continue to ask any questions in the chat for the next 12 minutes, and we'll be sure to follow up with you offline. As with everyone else who's added a question so far, we'll be following up with you. So just because the question wasn't answered doesn't mean we won't get back to you. And we will give everyone a link after this in an email so that you can come back and look at the recording or share the recording if you'd like with any of your colleagues. So thank you so much to Jen and the entire Kuali Research compliance team. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate everybody attending. And feel free to contact me directly with any questions. Thanks, Susan.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.